Hi, I'm Jack Brandis, and welcome to Heart and Mind Mondays, where we take the most challenging day of the week to set your heart and mind up for success. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a treat for you today. I am in the home, and more importantly, in the kitchen of our guest of success today. And our guest of success is Chef Michael Forster. Michael, welcome to Heart and Mind Mondays.
Thank you for having me.
As long as we've known each other, you know I run a mindset and success coaching business along with my strength and conditioning and in-home personal training business. And I have a tremendous passion for what I do for a living. And it's the old saying, I love what I do what I love. And I love to set up these interviews with other people and talk about their passionate field of interest. So our audience can learn, and who knows, there might be a chef out there watching, or a want-to-be chef rather, watching our video today, and perhaps you inspire them. So I want to dive right into this, and I want to know why. Why do you do what you do? I mean, you're a chef, and let me tell you, first of all, before you get into that, I admire your profession because, I mean, being in the fitness profession for many years, I mean, I can cook, but, I mean, I'm just the basics. I mean, I eat well and all that, but it's just basics. You create masterpieces. I mean, it's just a whole world of difference between the average everyday person cooking in their kitchen. So, why a chef? Why cooking?
I do it because I love it. I've always loved it. I was a kid that mom called up, the night before and say, Mike, can you bake me a cake? I need a birthday cake for a nurse at the hospital for tomorrow morning. What can you do? And I was 10, 12 years old, whatever, and I'd have her a cake. But I've always had a passion towards cooking. Both my parents, great cooks, loved doing it, loved
watching. Did you learn from them?
I did learn from them.
Okay.
My mother tended to serve leftovers every night. We never had the first course, so we always had leftovers. But she always made it great. It was always great food for Mom. And Dad was always the big party guy, had a bunch of people over, and he'd be spending a day or two in the kitchen cooking. And I was always right there next to him, watching him, learning.
Big on presentation and those kind of things.
Huge on presentation. And a spread. He always did the spread. You could feed, 100 people on food that he put out for 20. So it was good stuff.
So when you're 10 years old and you're asked to kind of bake this cake and you're inspired to kind of do it on your own, did you just go off basic directions the very first time and you just kind of mix and match, and then you realize that after you baked it, it actually tasted good? Or do you remember those days?
I do remember. It was always box cakes back then.
Okay.
And it was always the same basic standard, and then I'd always put a little, and I'd have Mom spell out the name and everything, and I'd write the name on the cake and everything, and it was a step. It was one step. But from there, I ended up working at IBM after high school. Didn't think...
You're not doing too much cooking at IBM.
Not a bit.
So what took you from IBM into pursuing the career?
I went to my first college,
okay,
Marist College, for computer information systems. And at some point during the year, I decided, and I want to do this for the rest of my life. Was not for me.
You weren't feeling it?
There was no passion.
There's that word. I love that word.
So I left school, went home, started working in the kitchen as a favor to a friend, and from there, I was pushed into the culinary field.
You were challenged.
I was challenged, but I was also pushed. I had a general manager that told me one day, you need to go to culinary school. And I said, not for me.
Did you ask him why?
I didn't really ask him why.
Okay.
Just instantly in my head, I said, school, not for me. I don't want to do it. I'm not a big school person.
It's different when you go to school when you have a mission. Like you actually like what you're studying.
I didn't realize that.
But you found that out.
I did find that.
Okay, good.
So my general manager said, okay, you can either go to school or you're fired. Either way, you're out of here.
Wow.
So
your back was against the wall.
pretty much. So actually, he fired me.
So
I left, went back to IBM for about 4 months to save up the rest of the money I needed to go to school.
okay.
Went to Culinary Institute of America, upstate New York.
Now, how many years is that?
It's, 2 years.
Okay.
First day of classes, went into the registrar's office, paid my full bill, emptied out my savings account, and worked my ass off.
Wow.
I can't say that, I'm not. Can I? Sorry.
It's already said. It's okay. We move forward, right? We overcome adversity.
We always do overcome adversity.
Wow, that's beautiful. Let me ask you this. During the course of your rise to this profession, you know, when you go to culinary school, and then once you're done there, what's the next step? Do you just kind of, how do you create a resume at that time when you only had worked at the one place, or, how did you pursue? Were you worried about getting a job, or what avenue, you were going to take?
I wasn't, because while I was at school, I used to travel down to New York City on the weekends, and I used to stage in restaurants, meaning I'd work for free in kitchens, doing whatever, peeling potatoes, onions, whatever, just so I could see what was going on,
Okay.
learn about how the kitchen works, and from there, the day after I graduated, I went down to New York City, walked in the front door of the restaurant that I was staging at, and said, I'd like a job. And the executive sous chef said, stupid boy, you don't walk into Le Cirque and ask for a job, you make appointments. But,
well, you didn't know any better. You wanted to get work.
well, I had worked with him for 4 or 5 months before,
Okay.
For free. I was working for him for free. So he
Now
hired
it's time
me.
to get paid.
He hired me on the spot, said you start tomorrow, and I did. I started tomorrow. And
So how's it work there? You have your top chef there in the restaurant, and then you have, is it okay to say cooks then? You have multiple...
It's called a brigade system.
Okay. Tell us about that.
So you have your executive chef, who very rarely is on the line cooking in, a bigger restaurant.
More like a supervisor, just making sure things are running in a timely fashion.
More like
No.
a general.
Okay.
He's commanding all his people to do what needs to be done. Then you have an executive sous chef, who is the guy that's jumping in to facilitate everything happening.
Kind of like looking over your shoulder.
The executive sous chef is the one that really runs the kitchen.
Okay.
An executive chef doesn't necessarily need to be there. An executive sous chef always needs to be there. Then you have sous chefs. And you can have 3 or 4 sous chefs in a kitchen of that size. A New York City restaurant seats 200 people. You're going to have 6 or 7 sous chefs. And they're going to be the ones that are either jumping in on the station where it need to be, or overseeing different stations.
Okay.
Then you have cooks. And the cooks are the ones that are putting the food to the plate. Cooking, putting. And then you have commis, which are basically cooks' helpers.
Okay.
And they're just kind of...
Gophers maybe in the kitchen?
They're the ones peeling potatoes.
Okay.
Peeling onions.
They're preps. Yeah. Okay. Now, I know you don't work for a restaurant now. So how did you jump from being in that restaurant business of being a chef to a private chef now? Now you're kind of in the big leagues.
Well,
I mean, that's my verbiage, but, how'd you make that change?
I call it taking the easy way.
Okay.
In a restaurant, you're working 6 or 7 days a week, 12, 14-hour days, and it's this grueling, everyday kind of thing. Now I got hired by old catering clients. The last restaurant I was at, one day they asked me, their housekeeper asked me, "Are you looking for another job because people I work for are looking for a private chef?" So I said,
Right away, when you say private chef, right away, the bells and whistles to me go off. Like that would like be the ideal thing.
well, I'm thinking to myself, private chef, how often could they be at their weekend home? And how often right now do I see my daughter? When I was at the restaurant, I saw her every day for probably about a half an hour in between lunch and dinner. Because my wife would pick her up at the daycare, bring her over to the restaurant, I'd hang out with them for a half an hour or so, and then they go. So I missed from...
You miss that quality time.
Yeah, I missed from 2.5, well, not even, probably 1.5 until 3 years old. I missed. I said, not for me.
That's great awareness. I mean, that's an epiphany of sorts. It's really a light bulb going on that said, wait a minute, I really have to take a look at the whole picture. Family and work and
It's balance.
Balance is the key.
You need balance. In everything you do, you need balance, right?
So let me ask you this. All of this seems like hunky-dory stuff. You're doing what you love what you do, you're in the restaurant business, you get your job working there, you're working there, and then you get this private chef position and you love doing that. But there's no matter what, when we do what we do and when we have a passion for it, we always face some kind of adversity. There's times where we doubt ourselves, where we don't think we don't measure up, or we don't have what it takes, or we don't have the confidence. Our vision of self is not at the highest point. Do you remember any time in your journey of just any time during this journey of growth of you getting to where you are today, that there was times of adversity, something that you had to overcome to really kind of have the big breakthrough, so to speak?
Well, I think I had a chef once tell me that if you're not over your head, you're not growing. So I think every step that I've took, I've always tried to overcome an adversity.
So what you mean is that every position you were at, it was almost maybe at that time a little bit too much for you? Like you had to grow into it a little bit?
It's always a new learning experience.
Okay.
There's always something else for you to learn. Once you stop learning, you stop growing. There's always something else to learn, especially in cooking. You could memorize the earliest cookbooks available. Escoffier is one of the founding fathers of chefs. You could memorize that book cover to cover. There's always something else to learn.
Has anyone ever told you that you weren't good enough? That you didn't have what it takes? That you didn't measure up with other chefs? Was there any time where you didn't have the confidence? I mean, you're really confident, and you really have, to me, in my eyes, have succeeded in your profession, and you're happy, which is good. But has anyone ever told you that? Or if you could be one of the fortunate ones that don't experience that. Some of us don't. Some of us do go through our passion and live our passion with just great confidence, and it's a beautiful ride.
You know who told me that I didn't have confidence? Me. I was working...
Say that again?
It was me.
It was you.
It was me.
We call that in the mindset world limiting beliefs. So even though you were good at what you did, there are times where you still didn't feel that way.
Yeah, I knew it, and I made a huge move. I was in New York City. I was working at a great restaurant in New York City, and saw myself not being able to grow as much as I wanted to. So I kind of put a limiting factor on me, that I was where I was and that's where I was going to be, and that was it.
Like you were stuck.
And then one day I just said, you know what? Not for me. I moved out of New York, moved down to Baltimore.
Okay.
I went from big pond, little fish to big fish, little pond.
A great way to regain your confidence.
And I did.
Good.
And I did quickly. I was I was appreciated. I worked my butt off, and the people I was working for saw that. And within a year, I was running the fine dining restaurant in the hotel I was at.
Wow.
So it paid off.
That's good. Now listen, this whole thing is about success. What does it mean to you? The word success, the theory, the philosophy of success. How do you know when you've achieved it?
I have achieved.
You have?
I have.
Okay.
I have a great family. I have a wife that loves me. I have a daughter that is absolutely incredible, that I'm amazed by every day. I am successful. My definition of success, happiness. What brings me happiness is my family.
Doesn't get any better than that.
It doesn't. And it's so simple. That's I think that's the part that marvels me the most. Is that it's so simple, but it's so unattainable unless you realize that.
Well, you ultimately realize it when it really comes from within.
It does.
You have to be at that right
does.
place at the right time with the right people around you, and just be able to breathe and say, wow, I really do have it all. You know, people don't often just take a step back and observe their life like that. You know, they're always wanting more. Nothing wrong with wanting more all the time, but you know, it's good to count your blessings and focus on the things you do have. And,
I always want
and
more.
gratitude and appreciation. Well, that's part of the growth that you talked about earlier.
I
you want to
always
be
want
the
more.
best that
Yeah.
you can be.
You always
Right.
keep growing, but you have to realize in your mind that, you know, what you have, your base. I mean, that's your success right there. What can you put in your base? Because a tree can't grow without a base.
Well, you have to have that foundation, right? That's the big thing. Now, the future vision of self, the future vision of Chef Michael Forster. Could it be just the way you have it right now?
No, there's always more.
Do you know what that is yet, or are you kind of just waiting to see?
Well, my wife Lori and I are writing a cooking and wine book together. Hopefully that'll be out soon.
And that's
enough.
Lori Forster, the wine
Wine
coach,
coach.
right? Okay.
You can't
I kind of know her a little bit, right?
A little bit. So we're going to do that. We've talked about a kind of TV series kind of thing, a cooking show, cooking and wine show. He cooks, she wines.
I love that title. And so many people that I've talked about that title with, you know, when Laurie told me about that a lot of people just smile when they hear that title, you know, so I really hope that you can take that ball and run with it.
We're going to run with it. We're, you know, slow on the uptake, but it's gaining momentum, and we'll, you know, with her behind me, how could I not finish it?
Amen to that, right? It's always great when you have a great partner.
It is.
Someone's watching you right now. We talked about this in the beginning of the video. Someone that might have a passion and dream to be a chef. Any words of wisdom, anything that you can leave with them as we wrap this thing up?
The number one thing I would say would be to, before you invest in going to school and studying to be a chef, is to go into a restaurant and to work in a restaurant to see what the life is about. Loving to cook and loving to be a chef are two totally different things.
Okay. That's good advice.
As I said earlier, you know, an executive chef very rarely is cooking on a line. If you love to cook, you might just want to be a line chef, a line cook. There's nothing wrong with that. I've taken that step back just to fall in love with cooking again.
And you know why nothing's wrong with that? It's because you've said that success is happiness. So if that's where your happiness lies, so be it.
Yeah.
Right? That's great.
So I mean that would be my number one, you know, words of wisdom. Would that make sense?
Absolutely.
Is to get into a real kitchen. Work for free. I did it for months and months.
Experience is key. To make sure that you want to commit to paying a tuition to school and going further.
It's a different lifestyle. You're committing to a completely different lifestyle than the rest of the world. When everybody else is off, you're the busiest. You know, you no longer have weekends. Weekends are gone.
You're taking care of everybody else.
Well, yeah, that's when they're going out because they're not working. So it's a commitment, and it's a lifestyle, and it's a whole lifestyle change, and you have to realize that and accept that and be okay with it.
You know, I think most of the people out there, especially the people that want to be a cook or a chef or get involved in the kitchen profession, so to speak, they know in their heart already that they want to go in that direction. You know, now it's just a matter of where they want to perfect it. So make sure, if this is your passionate field of interest, that you commit to experience. Get your feet wet before you commit to the schooling and the profession itself. That's the words of wisdom that we have here from our chef, Michael Forster. Michael, thank you for your time. I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much, Chef. I appreciate it.
To the heart and mind of your success, I can't wait to see you next Monday.